Ian Parker riding in on a hot rod, on a hot streak, the likes of which have never been seen before in MMA. This is Combat Coach. I am Cody Merrow, producer extraordinaire, joined as always by Ian Parker at Ian Parker MMA. Ian, how are you feeling, my brother?
Listen, based off last night's PFL, feeling pretty good. We had some really nice plays last night, some good reads, and I'm looking to carry that into this UFC card tomorrow. So let's get it going, my brother. Let's do it.
Well, I don't know how the duck flies with so many people on his back, but we're going to keep these feathers flying at UFC 263. It's Adesanya versus Vettori 2 going down tomorrow at the Gila River Arena at Glendale, Arizona. The pay-per-view is going to be bought on UFC, the prelims on ESPN, the preliminary card before that on ESPN Plus and UFC Fight Pass. 28 athletes, 12 different countries. Ian, the heaviest favorite on the card, minus 560, lightest favorite, minus 120. Give me a quick recap or a quick summary of what you think this card's going to be all about.
Look, from top to bottom, you got some sleepers here. And at the top, the double title fight. I'm really interested to see where Nate Diaz is in this fight. This is not something you usually see him do. And I'll get into that later. You know, normally when he has a layoff and he goes into a weight class like 170, he fights kind of like a bigger name, not top tier guy. And this is a very dangerous fight for him and Leon Edwards. And I'm very surprised either the UFC is paying him that well or they're guaranteeing him a title shot if he wins, which wouldn't have happened any other way. So to me, that's a big one right there.
And an unprecedented 5-round event outside of a title fight, which is very interesting, something that I'm very much looking forward to. That's at the end of the card, but we're going to start somewhere near the bottom of the card here at Chase Hooper, minus 105, coming in against Steven Peterson, minus 120. Ian, this is a catch weight at 148.5 pounds. Peterson did miss weight. He'll give up part of his purse to Chase Hooper. How do you see this fight playing out?
Peterson looked terrible on the scales. You know, a lot of when you cap fight sometimes and people want to really look at these weight cuts. As a fighter myself, or in the past, no, I no longer fight, and I wrestled. Weight cuts, you got to understand, this is what they do. So they may look terrible, right? But I will tell you, when someone cuts weight and they miss it by like this much, that is way worse than missing it by 5 or 6 pounds. That means they're not willing to go to the darkest path of death to make weight. Peterson did. He looked sunken in the cheeks. He needed a towel on the scale, and he still missed it. And this is a guy who throws a lot of wild strikes. If he does these spinning back fists, bad idea against Chase Hooper. He's just got to use his jab and be technical and not go to the ground. I think Chase Hooper gets this done, though. I think this is a good matchup for him stylistically. I think he's getting Peterson in a missed weight cut in the best way. So I like Chase Hooper to win this one. And if he does, it'd be by submission.
Well, and it's a big win for the family. He's got to really come through for Ben Askren after he lost Jake Paul. And Sean O'Malley believe is a fight book, but Hooper's going to get it back on track according to the Duck. But coming up next on the UFC 263 card, Matt Frevola, the steamroller, minus 250, heavy favorite against Terence McKee, plus 195. Part of the odds are because this is a late replacement fight. Ian, how do you see this playing out?
This is a really tough one to cap. I think the odds are way off here. I think Terence McKee is being very much undervalued here because of the short notice. This is a very talented guy that's probably been a little overdue for his UFC debut. He's going against a guy, though, Matt Frevola, and I'm not going to be biased towards the Serra Longo team, but Matt is just very good everywhere. He's very tough. He doesn't stop. I would probably stay away from this on a betting standpoint. However, if you're that eager to do it, and because it's, early on, I would throw Frevola in a parlay. This is someone who's been training. This is someone who's had really bad luck with his opponents bowing out due to illness, injury, etc. And then Frank Camacho gets in a car accident. I hope everything's okay with him. I would take Frevola here, but I'm not super comfortable because McKinney's style might present a little bit of a problem. But again, if you're frisky and you're bored and you want to take a stab, Frevola in a parlay.
Well, and we are about confidence here on Combat Coach, and that's why we're going to skip around a little bit. New format here on Combat Coach, but guys, the picks are staying the same. Follow Ian Parker if you have questions about any of these fights. But we're going to roll on through the next fight. Movsar Evloev, minus 240 versus Hakeem Dawadu, plus 190. Come at me with the pronunciations. Ian Parker, where do you see this fight going?
So I like Evloev. Is that how Evloev? Evloev, yeah. So I like him here. Here's what I will tell you about this guy. From the beginning to the end, the pace is just very fast. He doesn't stop. Good striking, great wrestling. Dawadu is a very good kickboxer. His takedown defense has gotten better. However, he always starts off slow. You can't start off slow. You really can't. There's no pacing yourself against Evloev. There's just no way. So if Dawadu can get those calf kicks early, like a lot of them, to the point where it slows Evloev down, which I just don't see it happening. So Evloev at minus 240, a little high for a straight bet. I would throw him in a parlay. I think he gets it done.
I think that's going to be an absolutely crazy fight going down at UFC 263. Moving on through the card, Ian, we might be looking at a number one contender fight. Lauren, I'm not Barb Murphy plus 120 versus Joanne Calderwood minus 150. A little tough throwback for you there, Ian, after the return. How do you see this fight playing out in the women's flyweight division?
Joanne Calderwood is the more technical striker. This is just, it's always very hard for me when I cap her fights because I feel like I'm wrong when I want to be right, and I'm right when I want to be wrong type of thing. I always want to see JoJo succeed. She's very nice. She's a great personality and she's good for the sport, but she never wins the big fights. Always falls short. She gets very hesitant. She takes a while to get going. And against Lauren Murphy's been around for a while. Lately, she's starting to get that resurgence in her career, that urgency to finish and that striking. And she's being smart. She's usually physically stronger than a lot of these women in this weight class, but she just kind of waits. She's not waiting anymore. And I think against a hesitant Joanne Calderwood, Lauren Murphy at plus 120 makes a lot of sense to me. I'll take the underdog in this one.
Ian likes the underdog in that fight. And rolling on through the card, Ian, roll tide, Eryk Anders minus 150, the former University of Alabama national championship winner against Darren the Dentist Stewart plus 120. This one, Ian, I don't know how to cap it, but that's what I have you for. How do you see it playing out?
Funny, last time these guys fought, I went Darren Stewart, and I think the odds were flipped. And you know what's great about this type of situation here is that we get a chance to make up for it, and we're either going to be absolutely correct or way off base, right? So in that fight, what did I say about Eryk Anders? If he can be a bully and he can really attack Stewart early, he can get it done. The dude's a powerhouse, excellent athlete. Stewart sometimes waits, but he's a very good fighter as well. If it wasn't for that accidental, illegal knee from Anders would have finished off Stewart in that round, no questions. I think Anders knows what he has to do, literally the exact same thing, and I think he's finally got it together. He's not going to be that wild middle linebacker coming in and just trying to powerhouse people. He's starting to get that technique behind him. That left hand is scary. I like Eryk Anders here.
The first of 3 rematches on this UFC 263 card. Crazy, crazy stuff going down with the UFC matchmakers. Next fight coming up, Drew Dober minus 155 versus Brad Quake Riddell plus 125. Riddell, part of Israel Adesanya's camp, as we know, from New Zealand. Drew Dober, the American. Ian, which country do you think is going to run away with the victory here?
Oh, I hate when you do that because my people in Australia and New Zealand are starting to build a fan base.
All these people.
They're the best, man. They really are. They're the nicest people, I think, ever. I think this is a bad matchup for Brad Riddell. Very tough, hard to finish, good striker. However, Dober has a very good pace. He's got a really strong left hand. His wrestling is just going to be too much for Riddell. Riddell struggles against guys who have really strong double leg takedowns, which is where Dober is his best at. And I think Dober just fought a better level of competition. And, for me, I'm shocked. I would have had Dober here at minus 195. I think at minus 155, there's a lot of value there. So I will go with Dober.
Well, I reckon you're not doing much for your fan base by picking that way, Ian. All right, moving on to the main card where I'm going to spend some of the money that I want off Ian's PFL picks by buying this pay-per-view card. It is available if you have an ESPN Plus subscription. The odds start at light heavyweight Paul Craig plus 240 versus Jamal Hill minus 315. The Bear Jews 14-4-1 versus Sweet Dreams 8-0. He's only been a pro since 2017. And Ian, I can't lie, he's one of my favorite fighters to watch on the roster. I think this fight is going to be absolutely incredible if any of the buildup this week is telling us anything. But how do you see this fight playing out at the odds makers?
I think Jamal Hill is going to be too much for Paul Craig. Paul Craig, we have seen him, very good at jiu-jitsu. If he could put Hill on his back, Craig could win this fight. We haven't seen Hill really fight through that adversity, but we have seen Hill fight guys like OSP, who in my opinion is a tougher challenge than Paul Craig. OSP has the striking, has the experience at a high level, and has the submission game. For Jamal Hill, if he can keep this fight at a distance, use his striking, he doesn't need to get into a brawl. He's the better technical striker. Paul Craig doesn't have the best chin. I kind of see this going the way when he fought Alonzo Menfield, where he kind of gets a little too in love with his hands, tries to prove something. He fights way too emotional, Paul Craig, and Jamal Hill kind of lives in that space. So I think Jamal Hill gets it done at minus 315, though. You got to throw him in a parlay. That's just way too much. I also don't think this fight goes the distance. So if anyone wants to take the under, feel free.
Prop alert there.
Prop alert.
Ian Parker. Wish I had a duck sound effect. I would quack it right there. Oh, that was nice. No wonder they call you the duck.
I've been practicing.
Coming up next at welterweight, Ian, is someone we're quite familiar with. It's Demian Maia plus 180 versus Bilal. Remember the name Muhammad minus 230. The 15-year UFC vet Maia. He's 28-10 overall in his career. He faces the bully at 18-3. Ian, how do you see this fight playing out?
Look, put friendship, put relationships to the side here. Bilal should win this fight. He's fighting Demian Maia. I always messed it up. My apologies. Kind of like I said, at the best time. Demian's 43. He's coming off a really bad knockout loss to Gilbert Burns in Brazil. It's been a while. He usually doesn't take that long of time in between, and Bilal, he's getting better, man. Those leg kicks, the cardio, the pace, he'll be the better striker in this fight. There's no question. I think he's the better wrestler. I just also think he really doesn't want to get into those scrambles with Maia. He doesn't want to get backpacked by him, and Bilal knows this. So I think Bilal will be looking to keep this fight standing. I think his wrestling is more than good enough to sprawl out, not let Maia shoot in any double legs or outside singles. I like Bilal here at minus 230, though. That's a tough one. I don't think he finishes Demian, though. I think that's a tough task. So I think this goes the distance. That would be my play here, and Bilal in a parlay.
You'd be in very rare air if you were able to finish Demian Maia. He was one of the notoriously tough players in the welterweight division for the entirety of my MMA fandom. Coming up next, Ian, is the first of 3 25-minute scheduled bouts, but I doubt we're going to see that much time in the octagon. The next fight is Leon Edwards minus 560 versus Nate Diaz plus 385. Rocky out of England is 18-3 versus Diaz, a pro since 2004, is 20-12 overall. Ian, veteran versus a absolutely striking contender. How do you see this fight playing out?
Yeah, this is a huge opportunity for Leon Edwards. Getting a guy like Nate Diaz to agree to this fight in a weight class he really doesn't belong in. I'm sorry, Nate Diaz is a 55er. You can't convince me otherwise. Every time he fights at 70, he just gets ragdolled. I mean, even against Masvidal, who's not a true 70 either. I mean, if you go back to the fight against Rory McDonald, Nate looked like he never even fought in an MMA fight. I'm worried for him in this situation because I love Nate. The only fight I want to see Nate do is against Conor in a trilogy. Otherwise, I don't really understand. Like I said earlier, I think that if he wins this, he'll be the next one behind Kobe to fight the winner of Kobe versus Kamaru Usman. I don't see how he gets it done here, though. I don't think he's going to outstrike Leon Edwards. The power is going to be on Edwards' side. Can Nate Diaz force the clinch, get this fight to the ground? I just think Leon's too fast. I think his combos are too fast. I think Leon gets this done. I hate to even say inside the distance. I think probably around round 3 or 4. And that's when Nate usually falls. It happened with the Masvidal fight, and same thing, with when he fought against Josh Thompson. So, man, it's tough to watch a guy like Nate Diaz take a fight like this, but Leon Edwards is going to get it done.
It's one of those fights where the 25 minutes is truly a double-edged sword. More time where you could possibly finish.
More for us than for them.
Very, very much so, and I hope it's reflected in their paychecks.
Oh, yeah.
The next fight of the night is the first championship bout. It is a rematch. Davison Figuerato minus 225 versus Brandon Moreno plus 175. The 33-year-old Diaz de Geha, the champion, 21-1. He was 10-1 when he entered the UFC in June 2017. He faces the assassin baby, the 27-year-old, who is 18-5-2, a 6-2-2 UFC record, which is very odd. He's had 2 UFC stints. This is a rematch from their December 12th, 2020 match, a majority draw, which was due to the round 3-point deduction. Ian, 6 months here to prepare for this fight, full camp for everybody. They had to return to their respective countries. We hope to see a refreshed matchup here. How do you see this going as we run it back?
I honestly think this goes the distance. And I don't think this fight's going to go that much different than it did the first time around. The difference here, in my opinion, is that Brandon Moreno has felt the power of Davison Figuerato, and it didn't knock him out. And Moreno's tough, so if you are fighting in this type of fight against a guy who's known as a killer with that power, you felt the power for 5 rounds and you didn't go to sleep. Now you can kind of get back to your game plan and not throw punches while being so concerned about that. I think Moreno's the better scrambler. I think Figueredo, though, is the stronger guy. Figueredo had a really tough weight cut, 30 seconds left, within the weigh-in hour, and that's when he hopped on. So I will tell everyone this: if any of these titles are going to change, it would be Brandon Moreno, in my opinion. However, I think this fight does go the distance. It wouldn't shock me if Figueredo wins this one. Again, he's very good at controlling on the ground, but there's something about Moreno, man. I have this feeling with his jiu-jitsu. He doesn't just sit there. He's constantly moving, throwing from the bottom, throwing up submissions, and he doesn't go away. So you know what? I'm going to roll with Brandon Moreno at plus 175. All right. I grabbed him earlier in the week in the plus 200 range. So plus 175 is not as appealing, but again, I also think this goes the distance.
And that's why you have to follow Ian Parker on social media, because Combat Coach doesn't come out till Fridays. You know that, but you got to get some of these numbers early in the week to really get some value. The next championship bout is taking place in the middleweight division. It's Israel Adesanya minus 275 versus Marvin Vettori plus 215. The last stylebender is 20-1. He's 9-1 in the UFC. He just lost to Blachowicz in March, his first loss of his MMA career, not the first loss in his combat sports career. He faces the Italian Dream, who's 17-3-1, 17-2 or 7-2 in the UFC. On a 5-fight win streak. This is a rematch from an April 2010 bout, a split decision where only Chris Lee had it for Vettori. Izzy's second UFC fight, rematch in the same arena as before. A lot of things checking the box for why it could be the same. Ian, is the result going to be the same or different this time around? How do you see this fight going?
It'll be different because Adesanya will get the unanimous decision win. I think Israel wins by decision. Marvin Vettori is very hard to put away. But look, we saw Jan Blachowicz lay out a blueprint, which is what everyone believes. If you can get Adesanya to the ground and keep him there, his jiu-jitsu is not a threat. And that's not a knock on the guy. It's just, look, he is one of those phenoms that came to the UFC in 2 years, became the champ. The difference between him and Marvin Vettori's evolution in their journey, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be factual here, level of competition. I don't think what Marvin Vettori has done in his last 2 fights has been title performance worthy. Okay. Now, do I think they were good enough to win? Sure. Okay. And listen, winning's the most important thing. I would be more impressed if Marvin Vettori fought a Derek Brunson right now, based on what Brunson's been doing, or fought Robert Whittaker or Paulo Costa before fighting Israel Adesanya. To me, the rematch is not a story here. These guys fought back so many years ago. This is like such fake animosity. Even if Adesanya would have lost that split decision, in my opinion, he still would have been the champ within 2 to 3 years. I just don't see Vettori's his entries on his takedowns are way too telegraphed, and I think he fights too emotional. I think he wants to knock Adesanya out, which is a terrible idea. Take Israel Adesanya to win this. Throw him in a parlay, and again, if you want a prop, I like him by decision.
Well, and a very interesting breakdown there from Ian Parker, and still in the main event, but possibly and new in the co-main event. That would be a first-time champion for the country of Mexico. But we're both Americans, and we got to get on out of here. It's Combat Coach. I'm Cody Merrow. This is Ian Parker. As always, follow him on social media for all your MMA plays. Follow me for great content and because I'm a good-looking guy. That's it. We're going straight to the pay window.